Hi there, welcome back to the Art of Business English. This is Andrew Ambrosius for another episode of the podcast. Now, this week it's episode 96, and we are definitely continuing with the line of meetings. And basically, we are going to be looking at how you can ask questions and show interest in a meeting. Remember, if you did listen to last week's episode, we looked at how you can ask people for their opinions and how you can give opinions in meetings. So, we've been progressing basically through the steps or the stages of a meeting. We started with preparing for a meeting when my brother-in-law Jamie was here. We looked at preparation, like how to prepare for a meeting, all the steps that you need to consider for quite a detailed preparation plan. And then, continuing on from that, we looked at how to open a meeting. Then last week we were looking at how to, ask or give opinions in meetings and ask other people for their opinions. And this week we'll be looking at how to ask questions and how to show interest in a meeting, which is really important. We want to get you confident, want to get you participating in meetings. So we're going to be looking at a whole bunch of expressions today, just focused on that. So let's kick things off. I'm going to look at really a number of areas. I'll be looking at how you can, ask for, generally asking people about questions, or more specifically asking people questions, and then, using supporting your questions with what you think you understood, and then some stuff on how to show interest so that you can really engage people in the meeting. So let's start the episode. Let's kick things off. I want to look now at asking general questions. Okay, so these are really something, just to get a general idea on a topic. And we could start with something like, I'd be interested to know more about. Okay, so I'd be interested to know more about. Then you could say something like, could you tell us something about? Okay, so you're asking, could you tell me something about this topic or this issue that you've had? Could you give us an update on the status of? I often ask that of my staff, I want to know what's going on. So could you give us an update on the status of a project you're working on, or maybe a client that you're working with? And then you could say, I think everyone would like to get a broad overview on. So for example, you could say, look, Maria, I think everyone would like to get a broad overview on the issues facing this project. Could you give us some detail? Okay, so that's going to be a way to ask people for some general information on different aspects of the business that that they can tell you about while they're in or attending a meeting. Okay, so that is a great way to kick things off, getting some general questions going. Now we can look at asking for some more detailed questions. I mean, asking for detail, everything is in the detail. So let's start by looking at the first one. So what do you mean exactly by? What do you mean exactly by? And you'd put in the detail that you want to clarify. So what do you mean exactly by having delays at the factory? Okay, so that way we'd want to get more detail about what's causing those delays. Another one could be, could you please be a bit more specific? Okay, could you please be a bit more specific? Sometimes people talk a little bit too generally, and we want them to be more specific. Now, what's great about these questions as well is that if you're struggling with understanding, you should feel confident in asking people to be more specific. That way, you're controlling the discussion, you're controlling the conversation. What often happens with people who are not native is they get a bit embarrassed, or they don't feel confident because they don't understand something, so they just be quiet and don't say anything. Now, we encourage people to do the complete opposite. You should say, what do you mean? I would like you to be more specific. And that way you're the one asking the questions and you're the one getting clarification. Okay? Okay, so the next one is, sorry, could you just clarify your last point? Again, you're asking for someone to clarify something. So if you don't understand it, don't get nervous. Just ask the person to clarify, okay? And they will generally use different words, or make a quick summary of what they were trying to transmit to you. Another one is, I don't think I fully understand what you mean. Could you elaborate on that. Okay, here the preposition on is important. Could you elaborate on that? So to elaborate means, to go into more detail about something. So those are some expressions that you can use just to get people to clarify what they mean. And as I said, it's really important that you ask those questions, because that way you are the one that's controlling the conversation, and you're getting, the clarification that you need, instead of just being quiet and not saying anything. All right, the next one, let's look at asking supporting questions. I love these questions. They're my favorite. I really encourage you to use these, and I'll tell you why. Basically, if you look at the first one, so you are saying, and then you summarize what you understood. Now, I hate it when my students say, could you please repeat that? I find, could you please repeat that, a really pointless thing to ask someone. Why? If you don't understand something the first time in a meeting or whenever in a conversation, if you say to someone, could you please repeat that? They will probably just repeat exactly what they said before, which means that if you didn't understand the vocabulary or the expressions the first time, it's unlikely that you'll understand them the second time. Plus, it's a little bit annoying to someone if you keep asking them to repeat themselves. They're going to get frustrated. So it's better for you to take what you thought you understood and then put that into a mini summary yourself, and then clarify with the person. So you could say, so you are saying that the reason why we have delays is because the machine at the factory has broken down, and there will be a 2-week delay before the replacement part can arrive. Is that exactly what you mean? Or is that what you were saying? Or is that what you were trying to get at? So you sort of like summarize what you thought you understood, and then the person can say, well, yes, that's exactly what the case is. Or the person can say, no, I'm saying that there was a 2-week delay because the part has now arrived. And okay, so if we do it that way, it makes the conversation a bit more fluid, and we're not just continually asking someone to repeat themselves. Okay, so another thing you could say is, if I understand you correctly, you are saying, again, if I understand you correctly, you are saying, and then you summarize what you think you have understood. And that way, the conversation, it doesn't sound like you don't understand anything. Okay? And am I right in thinking that? Am I right in thinking that? So either you are right or you're not right. Okay? So you could say, am I right in thinking that this will cause us to lose significant productivity over the next week? And then the person would say, yeah, that's exactly right. And then you could leave with another question. So how much are we expecting productivity to fall by in the next week? Okay, so this is a great way to keep that conversation going and not just be stuck not understanding things. Okay, one more. When you said X, did you mean X? Or when you said X, did you mean Y? So this is a great one too, because it's very simple. When you said delays, did you mean 2 weeks or 3 weeks? Okay, so you're using this expression. It's very simple, and it's a great way to clarify something. When you said this, did you mean that? Okay, I love that one. It's very simple for non-native English speakers to use, and it's a great way to clarify things and make you feel a little bit more confident. Remember, if you're the one asking the questions, then you will probably be feeling a lot more confident than if you're the one that's being asked lots of questions all the time. Okay, let's move on to checking answers, which is great. So checking answers is super important because, we need to clarify things. It's really important that we focus on the detail, okay? The problems can arise when we're not clear on things. So let's check answers. We could say, is that clear? Okay, you want to make sure that people have understood you. So is that clear? Sometimes you've got, people in the meeting are just blank faces, and sometimes people are just not with you. They're thinking about other things. So it's really important that you're continually clarifying and checking with people and keeping them engaged in the meeting. Another one could be, does that answer everyone's question? Does that answer everyone's question? Okay, and you should get some feedback from people. Maybe some nods or some or no, maybe some further questions, or maybe people are going to ask you, well, sorry, no, I didn't understand your last point. Okay, have I cleared up, or have I cleared that last point up? So phrasal verb, clear up. Clear up is to clarify something. So you could say, have I cleared up that last point, or have I cleared that last point up? So in this case, you can put an object between clear and up. But to clear something up means to clarify or, to organize it. All right. Another one is, would anyone like me to explain that again? So sometimes you can really see from the expressions on people's faces that they just didn't understand that. And sometimes in meetings, people are a little bit shy or embarrassed to ask for clarification because they don't want to be seen as the person that doesn't understand things. So if you see that people are not with you, then you can say, would anyone like me to explain that again? And sometimes I don't even wait for the answer. I go, let me just summarize that in some other words, okay? You really need to have that emotional intelligence and feel what people, if they're with you or not, okay? So that's really important. And finally, you could say, is everyone okay with that? Is everyone okay with that? I mean, that's a great expression just to wrap up a point. Okay, is everyone okay with that? Yep. So you're getting this feedback, constant feedback from people. All right, so checking is very important. I highly encourage all of my listeners to do that in their next meeting. All right, let's continue now. Showing interest. Showing interest is also really great because it helps you to engage other people. So we can use expressions such as, that's interesting. Okay, people like to hear that you're engaged or you're actually listening or you're interested in what they are saying. So yeah, that's interesting. Another one could be, of course. Yeah, of course. Okay, so of course. Por supuesto, of course. Next one, John, please go ahead. So go ahead, adelante. The floor is yours. Okay, so that's also quite informal, but good one. Another one is, that sounds great. So you're, acknowledging someone's idea. Yeah, that sounds great. Okay, so it's a positive thing. And you could also say, I think you're onto something here. I think you're on to something here. So this expression, I think you're on to something here, means I think you're onto a good idea. You have, you've thought something through, and I think that what the direction or the path or the way that you're going is the right way. Okay, and you could say, yeah, I love that. It's really important that we acknowledge people's ideas, and it's quite informal to say, yeah, I love that. But if someone says something that's great, you can say, yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So you're encouraging them, and you're also engaging them, and you're showing interest in what they're saying. So again, very important to show interest in what people are saying, especially if if you agree with what they're telling you. Okay, and let's look at the next one, which is the last section in this episode, and that's managing questions. Now, sometimes questions can be a bit annoying and maybe not appropriate at that time of the meeting. So we really need some expressions to address those questions. Questions can be great, but they can also make meetings go off course or off track. They can also make meetings go over time. So sometimes questions are not really appropriate or relevant at that point of time, or maybe you will be addressing or answering that question in the next sentence or paragraph or minute or 2 minutes or the next section of the meeting. So it's very important that we control questions that are not really relevant or questions that will be answered in the coming minutes or the coming parts of the meeting. So some of the expressions we could use are the following. Can I deal with that later? So deal with something is to, tratar con. So can I deal with that later means, can I address it? Can we work on that question later? And most people would probably say yes. Could we come back to that? Could we come back to that? So could we come back to that later or at some other point? Meaning we will do it, we'll address it, but maybe later, okay? Another one is, I'm coming to that soon. Now, if you're coming to something soon, it means you will address that point in a second. So you are coming to it. You will discuss it soon. So, that will quickly also stop someone from continuing down that line of questioning. You could just say, no, I'm coming to that soon, and the person will generally wait for you. Another one is, I will address that point in a minute. I will address that point in a minute. So if you're going to address a point, it means you're going to deal with that point. It means you're going to discuss that point. That point will hopefully have a solution to it shortly. Okay, and finally, you could say, can you come and see me after the meeting? Sometimes questions or information is not there. You don't have the relevant information. So, or the question is not really relevant to the agenda or the points on the meeting agenda. And you can just politely ask that person to come and see you after the meeting, and then they can quickly have a quick one-on-one discussion with you, and maybe you can send them that information that they need or whatever. So those are some ways that you can deal with questions so that you can keep that meeting running on course, on time, and make sure that you don't just waste time going here, going there, and changing course. Okay, so those are my expressions in episode 96, I believe, for getting you guys to better participate in meetings. So you've got a bunch of expressions there for how to ask people for their opinions, for information, how to look for detail, how to use supporting information with what you think you understood, how to show interest in people, and how to deal with these questions that maybe are not relevant at the time. So a lot of expressions there to help you participate in meetings. And as I mentioned, just being confident and asking people to really clarify what they mean is one of the biggest keys to actively and effectively participating in meetings. If you don't understand something, it's better to ask someone to clarify it than just being very quiet and not saying anything because you fear that you might look like the person that doesn't understand. I mean, it's much better to clarify things and not be embarrassed. You need to be a bit confident enough to ask people for clarification as opposed to just keeping your mouth shut. I see that all the time. Okay, right. Well, that's it from me, my friends. As you can imagine, I'm diligently going to be working on the confidence or excellence in meetings online course over the next few months. So I've just got a few little episodes here just to give you guys a taste of what you could expect on the course. So I will be putting that together probably early in the new year. At the moment, it's coming to the end of the year, so we're quite busy with everything. I will be going to Australia for Christmas, to see the fam, which is nice. So stay tuned for that. And as you know, it's November. If you listen to this podcast, it's November of 2019, and we will be throwing up some exciting Cyber Monday and Black Friday deals for you soon. So head over to the Art of Business English in the coming weeks, and you can check those out. I'll put up some coupon codes, so make sure you listen out for those. Well, that's it from me. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope you're liking my little mini series into meetings, and I look forward to having you all here next week on the Art of Business English. Take care. Bye for now.